Hello, everybody. My name is Vincent. I'm product trainer with Golden State Instrument Company, and we will begin our webinar right now. At any time, you can click on the raise hand function to ask a question, or you can send me a question by typing it in, and I will unmute you and you can speak. And if you have any further questions, then just let me know. So today's webinar is about our 2 megapixel IP cameras. We're going to go over some the IP definition. We're going to go over compression types. I'm going to show you some picture comparisons, application types, how to connect them together, how to use switches, different power options, some NVR network video recorders, and a sample installation diagram. And at the end of our PowerPoint presentation, we're going to go over how to build your own NVR and connect your cameras. IP stands for Internet Protocol. It's a method of data transmission. It's different from analog signals, which transmit composite video signals. The difference between composite and our data is the composite video resolution is limited to 640 by 480, while IP is not. A typical 1.3 megapixel resolution is 1280 by 1024. In 2 megapixels, it can either be 1920 by 1080 or 1600 by 1200. We have a couple compression types. What compression is it compresses the video image so it can use a lot less hard drive space. So MJPEG can work on lower hardware requirements, but uses a lot more data and hard drive and bandwidth, while H.264 is more compressed format. It uses less bandwidth and less hard drive space for the same quality and time for recording. Here's a couple picture comparisons between a 1.3 megapixel camera and a 5 or 60 TV line analog camera. A 1.3 megapixel is 4 times the resolution of analog, while 2 megapixels is 6.7 times the resolution. On the picture on the left, it has the same field of view. You can tell some difference, but you can barely tell much when it's zoomed all the way out. But as you can see on the pictures on the right, when you digitally zoom it in, the difference becomes more pronounced. As you can clearly see the license plates on the megapixel camera, while on the analog camera, it is not visible at all. So this is the main difference between a high resolution camera and a lower resolution camera. So some of our 1080p camera features are the resolution of 1080p Full HD is 1920 by 1080. It has real-time 30 frames per second recording. It has PoE enabled, which means power over Ethernet. We'll go over some power over Ethernet functions later on. They have a web interface for more fine-tuning and a mobile app interface. Our 2 megapixel cameras also support ONVIF, which is an open network video interface forum. What it provides is interoperability between different NVR manufacturers. It gives you the flexibility where you're not locked into a certain system. It provides future-proof where for later on, if other technologies come out, then the cameras will still be compatible with it. And it provides quality. Because ONVIF requires a certain standard to be met to ensure quality of the product. Now we have our different types of applications. We have our indoor applications. So we can either go with a dome camera, a box camera, Vandal domes can also be used indoors. Then we have our outdoor applications. We can go with a weatherproof bullet. We can go with Vandal domes. Or for extreme environments, we can also put one of our box cameras into an environmental enclosure, as you can see with the GS940 inside of a heater blower housing. Our next application is for IR lighting, which stands for infrared. In some instances, you would need to see in complete darkness. What the cameras have is what is called an ICR, which is an infrared cut filter removal. What that does is during the daytime, it provides an infrared filter in front of the camera lens. So that way, it will not absorb any infrared light to produce washed out colors. But when nighttime hits, that filter gets removed to be able to be infrared sensitive. So you can see in complete darkness, the camera switches to black and white. And you can go with the integrated IR, like with our bullet cameras and our domes. Or you can go with the box camera with the external IR illuminator. To connect these cameras all together, you would use an unshielded twisted pair, Cat5e or Cat6 for data connectivity. The typical maximum cable length is 100 meters, which is 330 feet, and it is connected with RJ45 connectors. They all connect using network switches. Basically what it does is provides a way for all your devices to communicate with each other. So depending on how many IP cameras are on your system will determine the network switch. So you can have 8-port switch for 6 or 7 cameras, or if you have a more robust system with 48 cameras, you can go with the 48-port switch. Now we have our different power options. The cameras operate on 12-volt DC. You can use plug-in 12VD power supplies. You can also use central power supplies like that box in the middle. Or the most common method for powering IP cameras is using PoE, which stands for Power over Ethernet. Using PoE, you can run power and the data on a single UTP cable. The benefits are you don't have to run an extra 18 tube for power. PoE can be achieved using mid-span injectors, which go between like the camera and the switch. It injects power into the line. Or you can go the other route and start off with a PoE switch, which combines the mid-span injectors with the switch. To record IP cameras, we would use an NVR, which is a network video recorder. These are different from a DVR because it does not require any video capture cards, as the DVRs do for analog cameras. Because it's all data, so you don't have to convert the composite video to data with a capture card. Our IP cameras do come with free 64-channel software, and depending on the number of cameras and your resolution you will be recording on will determine your hardware requirements. We also provide a standalone NVR. Our GS NVR 4CH has a built-in switch, so you don't have to get an additional switch. The camera's plugged directly into the back of it. It supports our 1.3 megapixel cameras at 15 frames per second. It will support our 2 megapixel cameras too, but you have to bump it down to 720p, which is 1280 by 720. The benefits of using a standalone NVR over a Windows-based NVR that you will create is that you're not susceptible to viruses, and you don't really have to maintain it all the time. It acts on its own. Here's a sample installation diagram. of a typical IP-based system. You have your IP cameras. They connect to a switch, and then your NVR connects to the switch too to communicate with IP cameras. If you want to add internet connectivity to it, you can also plug the switch into a modem router. There are cost-saving benefits of using IP cameras, especially in the cables. Let's say you have 12 cameras right here, and typical installations where you will run 12 full-length cables down to the first switch. But using IP cameras and switches in general, you can add 3 switches for 3 different areas where all the cameras are. So this way, you only need 1 uplink switch to the first switch. The first switch connects to the second switch, and then the second switch connects to the third switch. This way, your cables are a lot shorter because all the cameras can just connect to each switch, and all the switches connect together. Another benefit this provides is you can go past the 100-meter cable limit of the IP cameras. So between the switches, you only need to fall under the 300-foot limit. And this way, you can theoretically give you an extra 1,000 feet of connectivity using this method. So it saves on cable, and it extends your camera length too. So now we have basically went over the basics of the IP camera. We're going to go do a little demonstration on how to connect the cameras together and building our own NVR. So we're going to do a basic NVR installation on a basic computer using our free software that is provided. There's no licensing cost per camera for this, so it saves you money and it gives you many options to do. So now we're going to create our NVR out of our basic computer. So first we find all the cameras on our network by using software that we provide with you. It's called IP Wizard. What this software does is it finds all the cameras on your network. So here we run the program. We're searching for any cameras that are connected to the network. And here we have found 2 cameras so far. So we have the first camera, which is the 936 MIPC, which is on 10.1.10.31. And then we have the GS970 MIPC, which is on 10.1.10.22. So now we know where our cameras are. So now we're going to install the software on our computer. So we run the SecureGuard software. We go through the basic installation process. So now we have finished installing our software. Now we're going to connect our cameras to it and start recording. So now we're going to go find our software and run it. So now this is our software, our NVR software. So now we're going to go start our setup process. In our Systems tab, we can tell it how to start when the computer starts up. We can have it auto start. We can have it auto monitor, which is auto record. We can also have it minimize at startup and have it automatically log on. Here we can set our storage configuration. We can set paths for our recorded data. We can record we can add another internal hard drive and have it record on there. Or we can have it record on a network drive, like a NAS drive. So this gives us many storage options. Here we will start setting up our cameras. So the first camera we saw was a GS936. So we named the camera. We tell it which IP address it was at, which is 10.1.10.31. Put in our user credentials, which is admin, and no password. And then we hit the add button. And after we set that, we can set our camera parameters. Here we select our different profiles, like if you want to go H.264 1280 by 720, so we're going to select that. Here we can also enable audio and set our protocol. Basically, we have three different types of protocols. We have HTTP, we have TCP, and UTP. For video, we probably want to go for UDP because we don't really need to have the overhead of TCP or HTTP that it has. So basically, TCP is when it sends out a broadcast, the other end makes sure all the packets are sent, while UDP just sends out the broadcast regardless of the other side even accepting it or not. So for video, we can go with UDP because that's the best way to do it because we don't need the other side to confirm that it has received the data. Okay, so now we'll set up our next camera, which is the GS970 MIPC. And that one was on 10.1.10.22. So now here we select the parameters also. We'll select this one for H.264 at 1080p. Another thing is we can also add external cameras. Say we have another camera off-site at a different location or one that's on a certain static IP address. So now we're going to go, I recently set up an external address, external camera, so we're just going to name it. And this one was on the external address of 70.141.135.244. As we did the other one, we're going to set our protocols too. Okay, now we're done adding all our cameras. We can go down to OK. And as you can see, that's all there is to it, to connect all the cameras together. And if we did have a pan tilt camera like our 936 is, you can control the pan tilt motion with the software also. Here I'm going to tell it to move over to the So the software can also control pan tilt cameras if you have any. So basically, that's how you, and then I'm going to show you a sample playback on how to play back what was recorded. So let's try to do a little sample playback on, so we hit playback, then we go to search. At any time that when there's recorded data, we'll have a bold box over the calendar. So you pick your calendar date, and you hit search. And wherever the cameras that have the blue lines, the blue bars over it, then that will have your recorded data. So we barely started recording, so we do have some camera streams right there. So we just select the time right there, hit OK, and start our playback. So basically, that's all there is to playback. It's very simple, as you can see. You can go to different dates if there is any other. Let's go to, there's on the last March on the 20th. So we'll play back what was recorded on the NVR previously. And from this screen, you can also do snapshots. You can do a convert to a recorded file, or you can do a straight backup. And I think Robert, hi Robert Bush, you have a question? Robert? Robert, you can speak if you have a microphone. Okay, so what Robert was asking is there a smartphone app? Yes, there's many smartphone apps out there that can connect to the individual cameras. What our cameras use is an access encoder, which is compatible with almost all apps out there support our cameras, because we use a certain access encoder, the Q7401, so that becomes very compatible with all the applications out there. So there's many free ones, and there's some paid ones that have more advanced features. So basically, that's our basic installation of our NVR. So now I'm going to go over some more advanced features of our cameras. What we have right now is an ROI feature, which stands for a region of interest. It zooms in on a certain part of the camera and displays it on the screen. So I'm going to go over that feature right now. So basically, we start up the web interface. So we hit the IP address of one of the cameras. We'll start with the one outside. So we go into the settings. Here we have a bunch of other features of our cameras that we can set. Like we can also use a more secure HTTPS. We can set a DDNS. Or like a DSL line with a PPPoE. We set our streaming protocols or ports, our universal plug and play, and other features. So we'll go to the camera setup. This is where we do some adjustments on our cameras. We can set the rotation, like if we want a mirrored or mirror plus vertical or a vertical flip. We set our white balance, our exposure time, and fine-tune our color levels, brightness, and contrast. And we also can set how our ICR works here too, which you remember was our infrared cut filter removals. We can also set it to auto. We can force it into night mode or set it on a schedule. We can set our noise reduction here and our auto contrast compensation, which is another term for wide dynamic range. What we use here is a digital wide dynamic range where the DSP controls how the front and the background look. So now we'll go to our, right here we can also set our video profiles. We can set it to either a certain, we can cap it off at a certain frame rate, like how I have it capped off at 15 frames per second. And we can also have a different kinds of rate control. What these are like how the bit rate gets transferred. We have VBR, which stands for variable bit rate. We have CBR, which stands for constant bit rate. So what a variable bit rate is, you set the quality level, and the bit rate will adjust to the quality level that you have it set at. So it'll either go up or down. When there's scenes where there's static pictures, then it'll use a lot less bit rate. But if there's a moving scene, it will use a lot more bits. And then we have CBR, which stands for constant bit rate. Basically what it is you tell the camera to send out this much amount of kilobits per second only. So what we have right here is we send 5,000 kilobits, so it stays that way. This way, you know, it could cap it off. The pros is it caps it off at 5, but the cons is it always uses 5,000 kilobits per second. Then we have an enhanced CBR, which is enhanced constant bit rate. So you set the bit rate, then you let the bit rate, it can spike to 10,000 kilobits per second, and you set the duration. The best one is actually using EVBR, which is enhanced bit rate. What this does is you can set the quality level, but you cap off what the maximum bit rate it can use. So it's like a combination of both, and you get the best of that. At the same time, you can cap off so it won't use too much bandwidth. And now we're going to go back to our region of interest feature. So let's set our first region to this car right here. And we hit save. Okay, so Gilbert has a question. Hi, Gilbert. Do you have a question? Gilbert?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello? Okay, yeah, the question was the standalone NVR you're talking about is the same configuration software for if we're not using a PC, downloading it into a PC, if we're using a standalone NVR.
The standalone NVR has the same format software, but it's a little bit more limited because of the hardware. You'll have the basic, the 4 screens, but it doesn't have the more advanced features. It has the same playback as you saw. It has the same configure, adding in the cameras, the user screen, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference that it doesn't have is you can't do the region of interest feature like what I'm going to show you right now. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So now we're going to set a region for the first one. Now we're going to go to our second region. We're going to concentrate on that car right here. So we'll save that. So once we have that, then we'll go over some other features. We have our audio. We can enable our different compression types for audio. We can set certain users that can access it. We can have emails sent to, once we have a motion event, it'll send directly to your email account with snapshots. Here we set up our motion detection. And all the 2 megapixel cameras do have onboard storage. There's 2 good things about this. So One thing, it provides another, just in case your NVR goes down and you had an event or someone stole your NVR, or you'll have a redundancy factor, a backup, how you say, recording directly to the camera itself. So this provides an additional redundant recording on the camera itself that you can access at any time. And here's where you would find what was recorded. You can also have it sent to FTP server. And here you can set certain schedules on how to record and where to send it to, either to the onboard storage or FTP and all that. Okay, so since we're done with that part, we're going to add it into our NVR that we had earlier. So we go back to system setup. Now we're going to add our other regions that we had earlier. So we call this external camera ROI1. So basically we create another stream for the camera. Okay, we're going to set the parameters. We're going to set it to select that first region. Okay, so now we're going to create the second one. So basically what we just did was we created 3 cameras out of 1. We have our main camera, we have our first region, and our second one. So this is good for situations where you have an overview and then you want to concentrate on a cash register on one of the cameras, and then another one you can concentrate on a door or some place where you need to have more visibility or more zoomed up kind of image. So that's basically what our ROI feature does. And then we can, another feature of our NVR software is we can do an EMAP. So basically an EMAP is you load up a layout of your site. Let's say you have an office right here, as you can see. Since we have the 936 camera inside the office, we'll put it maybe in the lobby. And then we have the 970 inside another room. And we have our external camera capturing the outside. So basically, you can have this, if you have multiple monitors, you can have it on a different monitor. And then like at any time, you can just click on the camera. It'll bring up a little small, a viewing of that certain part. So that's what's called an EMAP. It's just one of those extra features that are added onto it. So this is basically our basic NVR software. It has almost all the features of any advanced software. It is, basically free. So so don't expect much out of it. But then, as you can see, it's basically fully featured from what I have shown you. So does anyone have any questions? So basically, if there's no more questions, we'll end our webinar for today. You can always give me a call later on, and then I can answer any more questions or help you spec out an additional system. And To any of our dealers in Northern California, the secret word is chocolate. So I guess, you know, okay, so if there's no more questions, then we'll end our webinar for today. Feel free to give us a call later on. We have a whole line of cameras, and it's all on our website. And if anything, my number is 888-808-0909. So, Gilbert, you have a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You were saying that somebody had asked a question regarding mobile applications, and I guess what you're saying is you can purchase different mobile apps that will work with this camera, the Golden State camera system.
Yes, we have basically our camera system uses AXIS, AXIS as a protocol, as an encoder. So okay. Even all the free apps out there, if you look on the app list of the supported cameras, you'll see AXIS in there.
Okay. Yeah, it's important for the, it's for the client to be able to access the cameras and make it user friendly as much as possible.
Yeah. So I mean, there's two ways of viewing it through a mobile phone. You can access the camera directly through the browser, or you can go the easier route by installing an app on your phones. Like on my phone, I have an Android. I have two free apps that I use all the time. Which one is called TinyCam Viewer, and the other one is called IP Cam Viewer, which is the most popular one. And those support a bunch of cameras. And our camera name might not be in there, but the encoder that we use will be in there, which is the AXIS encoder. So.
Okay, great. Well, that's good information. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mm-hmm. So let's see, Nate has a question. Hi, Nate, you have a question? Nate?
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. A little confused because you're wiring up these cameras, they're IP cameras. But what about the wireless IP cameras? Do you do this the same? Can you go into that a little more depth?
Okay. So let's say I have a wireless camera. I do have a wireless camera on the network right here, so that I'm using right now. This one is 10.1.10.31. So this camera is a wireless camera that I have hooked up previously. So I'll show you first initially you would have to connect it to a patch cable directly to your router. But then on the wireless cameras, you'll see the wireless option right here where you can connect to a certain IP address. So it's just like a computer. You'll see a scan for whatever wireless networks are in your area. You pick one, and you put in your WPA key or web key or whatever it uses to connect, and then you just unplug it. Because this camera right now is not plugged directly into the router, but it is connected to the router. So we do have a couple wireless options, mostly for indoor. We don't use it for outdoor cameras is because of so much interference in the outside, and it's not reliable enough to use outside. That's why we only have wireless indoor cameras.
All right. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Here's a question in wireless. Since you defined it as inside primarily, how far can you run the cameras in a building, let's say a 50,000 square foot building, before you have degradation on the signal?
Well, the wireless is so unpredictable, but theoretically it is 300 feet line of sight. So line of sight, could mean anything. So that's in the ideal situation. But you can always put up repeaters and stuff like that all over the building to enhance your signal.
Okay. You're saying that it's not that reliable as far as using it outside.
Because wireless is only one-way transmission, so you send a signal, you get a signal back, send a signal, get a signal back. When you're doing wireless, you get full duplex signal. So it gets transmitted and received at the same time, unlike half duplex where you send and then receive, send and then receive.
Okay. You did a demonstration on the wired IP cameras where you could use a dome camera with pan and tilt. You demonstrated one camera. On this software, how many cameras can you use with pan and tilt on the software?
Well, you can use every camera as a pan and tilt.
But
it's not like an address like analogs where it's RS-485 where you have maximum of 64.
Okay.
So every camera is all data from there.
Okay, so you could use on the software pan and tilt and use it on 3 or 4 cameras at a different time or the same time?
Yes, but then you can only pan and tilt one camera at a time. But you can also set the pan and tilt camera on a scheduled tour if you wanted to. So, but to control the cameras, only one at a time.
One at a time.
But you can have multiple pan and tilt cameras on the system.
Okay. And you'd mentioned about a camera. Let's say the NVR gets stolen, and you said that the camera has a memory. Does that use like one of these chips, or is the memory built into the camera?
It uses a micro SD flash chip that you see out there for like a micro SD card for storage.
All right. So you can take that and download it into whatever you want to.
There's a slot in the camera for the micro SD cards to record on board.
Okay. Good.
So Gilbert's asking if I have any night shots of the cameras. Hi, Gilbert. You had a question?
Yeah. Is there, our concern with with our clients is a lot of the problems they're having takes place at night. So we're just curious if you have anything that you on your DVRs that are shot at night that we can maybe take a look at, or maybe there's some YouTube videos that we can look at, or.
Yeah, I'll try to get one of those. I'll try to do a night shot. That's because I haven't done one yet. Is because we have a office building where I can't run the cameras outside. But I'll try to get a night shot and probably post it on YouTube. So and then I'll try to see, what I can do with the night shot. But usually, the megapixel cameras don't do as well at nighttime as the analog cameras, because it uses a CMOS chip instead of a CCD. But the good thing is on all the cameras you can also add IR illuminators to it. If the night shot isn't clear enough, just add a couple more IR illuminators and it'll brighten up the whole shot.
So you can have standalone or just dedicated IR illuminators that basically are making it light for the camera.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
That are apart from the camera.
Yeah, so I mean, you can do a combination of both. You can just use the camera without the IR built in, or you can use like the box cameras with ICR, and in either camera you can add additional IR illuminators if needed.
Do those IR illuminators connect with Cat5 also? I mean, can you power them up over on the same network?
We don't have any IR illuminators that have PoE enabled yet, but usually like the IR illuminators, you can power it anywhere locally because you don't have to run it back to the source or anything like that. So.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay.
So any other questions? Okay, so if there's no more questions, then we'll end our webcast for today. We do have some training videos on our YouTube page. So if you just do a search for Golden State INST on YouTube, that's what you search for, and then you'll find our YouTube page with our past webinars or any future ones and other additional training videos that may come up or questions that you may have. Then you can always give me a call or email me. And then that's it. So have a great weekend, everyone. So, and I'll end our broadcast for today. Thank you.